Shared news from home. This is our first ever live Bachelorette recap. We are so excited. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, make sure you do and ring that bell so you don't miss out on any future videos or any future lives. As always, I'm your host, Fiona Zaring, and I'm joined by the wonderful Gabby Gonta and Avery Grooms.
Hello.
Hey, Fiona.
Hello, hello. So you guys, if you are joining us live, we want you to comment along with us in the chat. We're going to share some of your questions and comments at the end. So make sure you hop in the chat and let us know what you are thinking. You guys, I feel like we should just dive right in because this was a pretty jam-packed episode. First of all, how many times do you think we heard the phrase grown ass men tonight? Oh my goodness. We need to rewatch this and make it a drinking game. That was truly, I think, the thing that stood out to me the most. We obviously kicked things off with an interesting challenge hosted by Ashely I and Jared. It was a bit complex, a bit chaotic. There were some physical elements, there were some thoughtful elements, and then, of course, plenty of time for the guys to show off more of their personalities. Bennet's bougie-ness really worked to his advantage. He did not compete in the physical challenge, which ruffled some feathers, but he ultimately won the diploma. He and Tayshia kissed in front of the guys, which they didn't love, to say the least. Chasen seemed to tick off the guys a bit, which I would just say is foreshadowing for the rest of the episode. And Ed was given the man-child award, which was also a bit of foreshadowing. You guys, let's talk about this activity, this date. Did anyone impress you? I feel like the thing that stood out to me the most is I just saw a lot of tensions starting to rise. Gabby, what were your thoughts?
It was such a cute date. I really love the concept of, testing their manliness, which included making breakfast or, just being a great husband material, I guess, for Tayshia. What stood out to me was the fact that Bennet, who went to Harvard, did not answer any of those questions correctly. I think that was insane, seemed a bit staged, or maybe he was just extremely nervous and that's what the real outcome was. But I thought that was hilarious. Of course, he ended up winning the day after that, so it didn't leave a mark too much. I think, like you said, his bougie-ness won for him in that instance. Avery, what did you think about this manly test date?
Yeah, I thought it was super cute, but like you said, I was confused on Bennet and him struggling with those answers just because I feel like the bar was definitely raised for him after hearing he graduated from Harvard. But I remember there was a clip where Ivan looked over at him and he spelled like limousine wrong and he was like, "Are you serious, dude?" But I was kind of thinking the same thing too. Like, I think he just got really nervous because he knew like people had expectations for him. But he still won, so that was cool. But that just threw me off with the whole Harvard and like missing these simple questions. But it's cool.
Totally.
Well, let's talk about that after party.
Yes, I think that's when the drama really started to heat up. So after the after party, Bennet decided to wear his robe that he put on for the bougie part of the breakfast date. He wore that to the cocktail party and the guys roasted him a bit for it. And Chasen also called him out for kissing Tayshia in front of the other guys, and he called it cringy. So might be a little bit of jealousy there, I think. But Bennet was still very confident and immediately tries to steal Tayshia away. But she was actually a little bit awkward and taken off guard in that moment. So she wanted to make sure she said hello to all the guys first and settled in a bit before she was stolen away. But then Chasen asked her to go talk and she ended up saying yes. So there was a moment where tension started to rise and those unfolded even more later in the episode. At this point in the night, Bennet and Ed began connecting over their dislike for Chasen, which also unfolds a bunch more. So, girls, what do we think about this after party? Do we expect Bennet to be a pot stirrer like this, or do you think these guys were just jealous of him for winning most of the date? Fiona, what do you think?
You know what? I was a little surprised. I still love Bennet. I was definitely like excited to see more of him in this episode, but there were a few moments where I was like, all right, Bennet is sort of like mixing it up, not really creating any drama, but like was sort of like a catalyst. He and Ed together seemed to like accidentally egg each other on and cause some trouble. I don't think ultimately Bennet is going to be a huge pot stirrer. I think he has like a bit of a cocky flair, but he always brings it back down to earth with like a humor. He laughs afterwards, you know, he's like poking fun at himself. So I don't know. I don't think I expect to be seeing a lot more drama from Bennet. I think the guys are probably a little jealous, like you said, Gabby. What are your thoughts, Avery?
Yeah, Fiona, I totally agree. There were just a couple moments where I was thinking, wow, Bennett's kind of bold. We haven't really seen this side of him, but he didn't ever take it too far. Yeah, he kissed Tayshia in front of all the guys, but like you would do that too if you just had one, you know? So I don't think he's going to be a villain. But of course, boys will be boys and get jealous of men who are doing well. So that's what is happening here. But I think he's a good guy, you know, as far as we can tell, he's good.
Definitely.
All right, but all the drama aside, we did see Tayshia make some exciting connections. She and Ben had a great talk. He opened up about being a relationship guy and why he's single. They shared quite the kiss, and I think it's safe to say that the relationship has been added to our ones to watch list. In addition to Ben, Tayshia and Ivan's connection continued to blossom. Tayshia described him as a dark horse. He blindfolds her and feeds her fruit, and then they kissed. It was a bit cheesy, but I think it worked. Ivan ended up getting the group date rose. So, guys, I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on some of these earlier connections. I feel like it is still early days, but I think these new connections we're seeing as far as Ben, Ivan, I think they could be potential front runners. What are your guys' thoughts? Gabby?
Yeah, I thought Ivan's move with the strawberries and the kiss, I thought that was so slick, and we were just seeing a whole new side of him with this. I think Tasha's really gonna like that. He has these creative things up his sleeve. And the same with Zach. He's just such like a laid back, mature, suave type guy. So these are two that I'm gonna add to my watch list because they did awesome this episode, I think, and their connections are really growing. What do you think, Fiona?
Totally. I agree with what you both said. I think that, you know, Tayshia is so likable and like so confident in herself that when she makes a connection with someone, it is so clear if it's like a real connection or if she's just like a fun, personable person, you know, and so she can have kind of a great conversation with anyone. But Ben's an early standout. Zach, like you said, Gabby, Ivan, who seemed so shy to me around Claire, and now he's whipping out blindfolds. Like these guys are really blossoming. So I think we're gonna have to keep our eyes out for some of these early connections. Because I mean, I feel like it's sometimes the ones that they initially connect with end up being the ones at the end. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling. But front runners aside, let's circle back to that drama because as much as I do love a dramatic moment, it sort of felt like Ed and Chasen stole the entire episode. The amount of times we heard those two names, they really, really got into it. As we pointed out earlier, interestingly enough, it was Bennet who called out the elephant in the room. He calls it out and then he kind of, you know, steps back and lets it unfold. But he called out the fact that Ed and some of the other guys were maybe, you know, questioning people's motives. And then with just that little push, Ed really goes all in. He just says, hi, I'm Ed. None of you know me, and I've got a lot to say. He says Chasen is fake. He says Chasen is phony. He said he was not here for the right intentions, which made me laugh because later on he does figure it out and starts saying not here for the right reasons, but he put his own little spin on it at first. He, of course, then makes the classic decision. We've seen it so many times to run to the lead and tell them all of his concerns. He says that, you know, Chasen turns it on for the camera. He wants Instagram followers, et cetera, et cetera. We've all heard the speech. Tayshia, of course, confronts Chasen. He, of course, defends himself, which inevitably leads to he and Ed, getting in each other's faces. And now I think it's safe to say they will literally be enemies for life. You guys, this got so dramatic so fast. I was really not expecting it. I don't want to speak too early on. We've got a lot more to discuss on the drama front, but I feel like a lot of it was Ed. What are your initial reactions, Avery? Were you expecting this? Were you shocked?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this to this extent. I can't say I'm here for Chasen or Ed. I just think the whole situation was dumb. But I feel like Ed is in a worse place just because he pulled that classic move of running and telling the lead. And just, I said this last week, but that's just never a good look. And that never works out for any contestant that does that, whether they're in the right or wrong. Just the fact they're involved in this type of petty or not petty drama, it's not a good look. It's not a good look for these guys. Gabby, what are you thinking about this?
First of all, I think it was really hard to take Ed seriously with him just holding this fake baby for most of the episode. He had to carry that around because he won the man-child part of that date. But, they're having serious conversations and he's just holding this like toy. So it was a little strange. But that being said, I think I was more team Ed actually, because of the way that Chasen was like defending himself and just being really aggressive with it. I think Tayshia even mentioned people don't really get defensive like that or make a huge deal out of something if it's not true. So it just put a red flag on Chasen for me. And at the same time, like you said, if Ed's just talking about other guys for the entirety of his time with Tayshia, that doesn't grow their relationship. So that's tough. But at this point in the episode, I'm a little bit leaning more toward Ed.
All right.
But the drama only continues there as we move on to the cocktail party after that, which is the last one before their first rose ceremony. So Chasen kicked off the night by addressing the group and getting all the rumors out there in the open. He says he felt that his character was portrayed in a false light, naming Ed and the things that he said about him. He said he feels insulted and reveals his new word for Tayshia, smoke show, which the guys did not think was a great one. And Chasen was standing by that, but that's another story. Ed was presented with a chance to back down, but he refused and keeps claiming that Chasen is just fake and putting on this show and not there for the right reasons. And besides all the back and forth, though, tonight, Tayshia did get some great time with these guys, and we saw some cute surprise setups, like the Paris setup with Bennet. That was adorable. There was some poetry, and they were eating food. So all drama aside, Tayshia was having a great night and deepening her connections with these guys. She's having a lot of fun and getting to see their creative side, so that's really good. But of course, during Ed's time with Tayshia, he brought up the drama again between him and Chasen, and he told her that he screamed at him and towered over him. So Tayshia was clearly disappointed that this happened because she doesn't want anybody to feel uncomfortable and was just not happy with the way that Chasen handled it. So she decided to pull him aside and talk about it, of course. At this moment, it really seemed like she was going to send him home because, she's a no drama type of girl and wants to shut it down immediately. But, after they were having this talk, he sort of owned up to it. And so she gave him another chance. And he actually went to go do what Tayshia suggested, which was just pull Ed aside and resolve everything. But of course, Ed was not backing down again, and it only kept escalating, even with other guys getting involved because, Ed just believes that Chasen is being fake, and it's just evolving. There's more and more drama coming up because of this. So Ed seems to be just egging it on. He's not apologizing to Chasen. He's not letting this go. So could Ed be the villain in this case? Fiona, what do you think?
I think it's just a mess. Here's where I keep coming back to. Whenever these kinds of like one-on-one rivalries start to form, whoever goes to the lead and whoever defends themselves, at some point they cancel each other out. And whether they're sent home in the same episode or they're sent home, one after the other, they end up going home because you don't look good when you're a tattletale. You don't look good when you're whining. Chasen doesn't defend himself very well. He doesn't. He also has some weird Wolverine thing and some aggression. So, he's not painting himself in a wonderful light. I do have to say, though, I don't know if villain is the right word for Ed. He's not striking me as that guy he's not Yosef, right? Like, he's not coming across like that. But I think he's a pot stirrer. Like, that's the word I would use. He seems to have a fiery temper. He seems to be ready to go. And he's got to know on some level that just being like, all right, I'm going to agree to disagree. I don't trust you, but I'd like to, I don't know, have a conversation with Tayshia where I show off my personality. Like anything else, It feels like he's trouble. His head's always going for the fight, and he refuses to back down. So I don't know. That's my long-winded way of saying I don't know if he's a villain, but I think he's trouble. What about you, Avery?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think he's a villain, but he seems very troublesome. He likes adding fire to fire. He had a chance to calm down the situation, and that's when we saw him get almost more heated and more annoyed and more ramped up. And that's the total opposite of what should have been happening. So the fact that he handled it that way, like you said, I don't think he will be a villain, but the way he's handling situations is not doing him any favors. So troubling's definitely the word for him.
Totally.
But all right, let's talk about Tayshia's first rose ceremony. She was going into this with 19 guys. Overall, the group is annoyed by the drama and hoping to see Ed or Chasen or both of them go home. Tayshia keeps them both, and Ed clearly is pissed. She did say goodbye to 3 guys, mainly to people we didn't really know. Things are going to start to get intense because we still have 16 guys, and there's not a ton of time left. Were you guys surprised by who she sent home? Because honestly, knowing Tayshia doesn't want any BS, I thought she was going to at least maybe send one of them home. But at the same time, they're just more involved than some of these other guys who were sent home. What are your thoughts, Fiona?
I think that's a really interesting point. I thought the exact same thing. I don't think Tayshia's one to mess around, so I was a little surprised. I do think, though, that she's also not one to make like snap rash decisions. So there's a part of me that just believes, like you said, they've been more involved. She's had more time, at least that we've seen with them. So she figured, I don't know who's great or who's not. I don't know what's been said that's true. I'm going to give them a little bit more time, but keep both parties here so that she doesn't accidentally send home the wrong one. That was kind of my thought process. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I saw 2 of the guys who went home's faces for the very first time as they were going home. So maybe they've just been guys that flew completely under the radar, and she felt like, well, at least I kind of know these 2. I don't know. I'll keep them and see how this shakes out. What are your thoughts, Gabby?
I thought the exact same thing. I was honestly surprised she didn't send more guys home because it's already getting down to the wire and she has some front runners. So it seems like she could start cutting more guys. But like you said, maybe she wants to play it safe and just keep them here and see what unfolds next week. There was a lot of drama with Chasen and Ed, but she seems like the girl who would, give a second chance and not make a snap decision, as you said. So we'll have to see if more goes down between them or between different, groups of guys, then she might be a little more strict at future rose ceremonies. But this is a good one for Tayshia's first of the season.
Totally.
Yes. And since we're talking about rose ceremonies, I think it's time we reveal who took our roses home tonight. If you guys are new here, or if it's your first time tuning in, what we do every week is hand out our own roses to someone who we thought stood out to us. I will start. This week, Ben definitely stood out to me just because I first didn't notice him that much before, but especially tonight's episode, them 2 together, I love. I love seeing that side of him when he's with Tayshia, and I love seeing that side of Tayshia when she's with Ben. Whatever it is, I just want more of it. And I just thought it was so cute when he was just explaining how he feels about her during the interviews, and just to see that other side of him. I said last week I was team Brendan, but now I'm team Ben. What about you, Fiona? Who is your rose going to?
Well, you know what's so funny? When we wrote this down earlier, this name popped in my mind, and now you're talking about Ben, and I'm like, how could I not be giving it to Ben? Because I totally agree with you. But I was totally struck by Joe tonight, and I don't know if it's because it's the first time we've really gotten some fun moments with him or some fun little one-liners, but he totally won me over on the wrestling date. He was like so shy and nervous and was like, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I was just like, oh my God, Joe, hi, welcome. Nice to meet you. So I don't know. I gave mine to Joe this week. What about you, Gabby?
Mine would be going to Ben as well, because I just thought his entire presence on this week's episode was just adorable. I loved his quirky side, how he was just not afraid to tell Tayshia how much he's into her and how he hasn't dated for a while, but like he just gets such butterflies and great feelings when they're together. It was just a real spark that I could see. And I think she also loves guys that are kind of quirky and cute. We know that she dated John Paul Jones on the Paradise version of The Bachelor last year. And he's such a quirky, fun guy too. So I see elements of JPJ and Ben, so they might work out.
Well, we will just have to wait and see. I hope some of our roses end up being front runners. I feel like we know. We've got our finger on the pulse. All right, let's dive in to the second group date. It was, as I mentioned, wrestling themed. We saw another fun cameo from Wells Adams. We saw a lot of body oil, which seemed excessive. There was enough oil to cover them all head to toe. Aside from that, the matches were pretty intense. The injuries they hyped up in the teasers, though, were not. Shockingly, they ended up being pretty simple. I think Ben basically stubbed his toe, which, of course, we were glad. We didn't really want to see anyone need a medic. I don't know about you guys. It felt like to me the entire date was literally designed to pin Ed and Chasen against each other. I was getting nervous as we watched, the other matches unfold. Guys without beef were getting pretty intense. And then at that last second, Ed decided to reveal he has apparently very bad shoulders. He said they were chronically dislocated, something along those lines. And he said to Chris Harrison, I can't throw a football, which we're going to get into a little bit more in a second because I find that to be suspicious. Because Ed backed out, Noah took his opportunity. He jumped into the ring to fight Chasen. They had probably the most intense matchup. It was very, very aggressive. Ultimately, Chasen won. And I'm not going to pretend to really understand how wrestling works. I don't know exactly why Chasen was deemed also the ultimate winner of the night, but he was. And therefore, he scored some extra time. Noah's bold move, similar sort of to Blake with Claire, totally worked for Tayshia, did not work for the guys. She rewarded him and, of course, invited him to join the cocktail party. So I want to know your initial reactions to the Ed of it all, because I don't know if it totally stood out to you guys, but I was struck by the intense montage they showed us of Ed working out earlier. Few moves in particular where he had those giant weights and was lifting them up and down. Seems to me like he might be able to throw a football. So I don't know, not trying to say he doesn't have a real issue, but what were your thoughts, Avery? Do you think it was shoulders? Do you think it was getting a little too intense in there? What were you thinking?
Okay, well, that montage is a great point because I was thinking back to it and I'm like, he's been doing a lot of physical activity. I think he realized where he was and what he was doing and last minute panicked and was like, I gotta think of something or this is gonna be really bad. Or he does have an injury, but I think, or an issue, but I think he really milked it and honestly was just scared. Who am I to say that? I'd probably do the same thing in that situation. But it also ended up backfiring because Noah ended up getting to be a part of that date. And it's like, that could have been you, you know? So
Totally.
I don't know. It was interesting. I think he just kind of chickened out last minute. Gabby, what do you think?
I think the timing of it was all very convenient. You know, he was wearing the outfit, which means, you know, shirtless and some boxers. But he was all dressed and ready to go. He was oiled up. And then it was right, you know, after he found out he was going up against Chasen that he went to go talk to Chris Harrison and back out a little bit. So seems like a little bit weird. If he had an injury of some sort, you'd think that it would have got cleared up, you know, in the beginning of the date or, you know, prior to that. So that was a little suspicious. That made me think that maybe he was just getting scared. And, you know, Chasen's a big guy and they have some beef already. So not wanting to be in the hospital with a crazy injury is a good excuse, that's for sure. But like you said, Noah stepped in and took on that challenge with Chasen, and he did a good job. I mean, he wasn't wearing the outfit. He was in jeans, and he still held his own against Chasen, and that rewarded him in the end. So
Totally.
After that, Tayshia actually invited Noah to the cocktail party. So we knew some drama was going to go down because the guys were not happy about that, adding another guy onto this group date. Noah steals her away right in the beginning, which didn't help his status with the guys. He was already not supposed to be at this cocktail party, and now he's taking up all the time with Tayshia. But they had a nice chat, and Tayshia has a funny idea. She thinks he should ditch his mustache. And he was surprisingly calm and relaxed about it, but I feel like there was some inner panic going on. It seems like he's quite attached to this mustache, but he was willing to give it up for Tayshia. So he went to go grab his razor and ended up interrupting her time with Jordan for her to shave it off of him. So I thought he looked great afterwards. What did you guys think, Fiona?
I was impressed. I think he loved that thing. I think he, you know, didn't get all weird about it. He rolled with it. And I think he looks way better without it. I think Tayshia made a great call for herself, for us at home. I was here for it. What about you, Avery?
I was waiting for that. I couldn't stop thinking the same thing. I think she made a great call. He went from like a 5 to an 8 just because of that. It was amazing.
It was amazing. That's a moment that we aren't going to forget from this season. But of course, there's other guys for Tayshia to hang out with at this party. So next up, we saw her and Brendan continue to hit it off, one of our favorites from last week. And Tayshia says that she has heart eyes for him. Very cute. Their connection is definitely still one to watch. He's a front runner in my eyes right now. Ben also had a master plan during this group date to talk with her last so that he would be on her mind when she was deciding who to give the rose to. But then, you know, the night ran out of time. Ben didn't end up getting any time with Tayshia. And she was just overall unimpressed with him, you know, his motivation to go and make sure that he got time with her. So I feel for Ben because I know that it's hard sometimes if you're a little bit shyer or you just kind of don't want to fight for it that night, you know, to get your voice out there. And I'm sure he cared so much and really wanted that time with her. So it's always difficult in those situations. Hopefully Tayshia still knows that, you know, he has pure intentions and wants to talk to her. But at the same time, Ben, like, you got to get in there. You got to be aggressive. So at the end of the cocktail party group date, Noah ultimately got the rose. So first of all, guys are not happy he was there. And second of all, he got the rose that they all wanted. So I think this is really going to be the start of how all these guys are going to start turning on Noah. What do we all think? They keep teasing Noah as our villain. Do we think it's because of this? The guys are just jealous, or is Noah really just going to keep stirring the pot and acting fake? What do you think, Avery?
I don't see Noah as a villain yet. I don't think he's done anything that wrong to call him a villain. I think just because he's getting attention and special treatment and now the rose for the date he wasn't even supposed to be on, guys are going to get jealous. Guys are going to want what he has, and therefore he might turn into the villain in their eyes. But as far as like a viewer's perspective, he seems like an okay dude who's just doing well, and the guys are getting jealous of him. I don't know. What's your take on this situation, Fiona?
I totally agree with you. I think what stood out to me about Noah so far has been like a quirky personality, like a funny, specific sense of humor, right? Like, I know he's a little younger than them. He seems to kind of be quiet and then hit you with something a little out there, like, jumping into the ring. But he doesn't have that, like, I don't know. I just keep going back to Yosef. When Yosef walked on the screen, I was like, ooh, there's something there. Like, he's going to do something. And I don't feel that with him. I think he might, find himself getting into it with the guys. We've seen it teased enough times. Something is coming, but does he have that like evil streak? I don't think so. My gut could be wrong, but I don't know. I just don't think so. I want to take a look at some of the thoughts we've seen in the chat because I'm curious on their take on this, on their take on everything. So you guys, if you haven't already, if you have any questions or burning thoughts or comments, make sure you send them in the chat. We're going to try to go through as many as we can. Let's see if we have one ready to go right now. Let's see what we got. All right, this first one says, if this man calls Tayshia a smoke show one more time, I swear. Kennedy, I couldn't agree with you more. Totally got where he was coming. I also felt like, by the way, we haven't talked about this yet, there are only so many nicknames and adjectives for girls. Whatever. Smoke show was an odd choice. I feel bad that he's got to stick with it now, but I didn't get what the big deal was. Oh my goodness.
All right, Benny says, Chasen is a douchebag. Okay, we've got a hot take there. I think he certainly didn't make himself look great in this episode, but we're gonna have to see if we see a softer side to him in the coming weeks.
All right, Carrie said, okay, no, but seriously, how the hell is Damar still single? We need to see more Damar, please. Highly underrated so far this season. I totally agree. I picked up on some small things from Damar about this episode. He mentioned how he's from Scottsdale and he loves Sunday Fun Day, and I just really related to that because I went to college in Tucson. But I was just like, I want to see more of this guy. Like, he seems like someone I know I could relate to and just would be good to see more of. I could really see them getting on. So I totally agree with you, Carrie. Hopefully next week we will get more of Damar.
All right. Allison says, love Ben, but he blew talking to her. Previews look good for him. That is true. It looks like Ben is going to bounce back. Also love Ben. He had a plan. I think that honestly, it seemed almost like a producer was encouraging him. Like, wait till the end, wait till the end. And then they pulled the rug out from under him. I don't know. I felt bad. He'll redeem himself. I have faith.
Mm-hmm. Nick's Giving says, I hope Mustache guy stays. Agreed. We love a good mustache. He doesn't have it anymore, but he's still a good guy, and he's gonna bring some drama, but I think he's gonna bring some fun moments as well.
All right. Ash said LMFAO, the guys and their sweet smack talk. I don't know. Honestly, it's hilarious. Like, I love it.
Oh, let's see what's next. Okay, Shannon says, even if you don't like Chasen, is liking Ed that much better? Someone that isn't focusing on himself, someone that acts very cowardly. Like, were you really afraid of Chasen? And if you were, that's kind of sad. Shannon, I agree. I don't think this is a clean-cut Team Ed or Team Chasen situation. I think they honestly made each other look pretty bad. So we'll see how it continues to shake out.
Carrot Kate says, Tayshia really had the nerve to complain about Ben when she let Noah into the group date and monopolize her time. Girl, I love you, but in this case, you are absolutely incorrect. This is very true. It sucks for Ben that he got no time with her, because Noah interjected and got, I think, 2 times to talk with Tayshia. So if he wasn't there, then Ben certainly would have got his time. So yeah, that seems like a bit of an unfair situation there.
All right. Sunshine Girl said, I love Bennet so much and Noah is adorable, but I don't think he is the right fit. Perhaps another John Paul Jones. I could definitely see the resemblance in their personalities. But we love Bennet too, Sunshine Girl, and is adorable now that he got the mustache off.
All right, let's see here. Rain says, these guys are sore losers. Chris Harrison asked someone to step up, so Noah was the only one who did. If you have a problem, take it up with Chris. Geez, these men are so salty. Listen, he seized the moment. I agree with you. I think that he was just being a strong competitor in that moment. And the other guys in jeans were probably jealous they didn't think of it. And the guys in shorts were bummed they didn't get there first. He just was competing. I think that's as simple as that. All right, let's see. Oh, we have another.
Paula says, don't make me mad or else I'm bringing Wolverine out. Yes, exactly. We all have a bit of a Wolverine inside of us. Chasen, that was strange. He said that one too many times, and it's just a guy thing. Whoever gave him this nickname, he said his friends gave it to him. It's a little bit weird, but you know, what are you going to do?
All right, this one says, get rid of Ed, please. I think his clock is ticking.
All right, let's see. Victor says, Chasen is definitely the dude who's on the show for more Instagram followers. Listen, Ed could be a little nuts, but still right. Chasen might not be there for the right reasons. It's hard to focus on what he's saying when there's so much drama, but we'll have to see if Chasen's intentions are revealed. All right. Well, that is all we had time for this week. If we didn't get to yours, hop in the comments. We want to know your thoughts. We want to know all of your predictions as well. Speaking of predictions, I want to share ours before we go. You guys, that teaser at the end was pretty intense. And in a separate video, we're going to break all of that down, looking for as many clues as we can. So if you want to check that out, make sure you check the description box. It'll have a link and you can be a Bachelor detective with us. But for now, let's just talk general predictions for next week, for the rest of the season. Honestly, you guys, I think you know where I'm going with this. I think Ed's a hothead. I think he might end up being our villain. That feels like the wrong word, but I think he's just going to be our troublemaker for the next few episodes. As long as he's around, I think he's going to be stirring the pot. What about you, Avery? What do you think?
Totally agree. I think he's going to involve in more messy, sticky situations, along with Noah, some more tension with the group of guys. Not necessarily because he's a villain, but just, how that all transpires. What about you, Fiona? Or Gabby?
Well, I think that Bennet, although he's our comedic relief right now, I think he's really going to start falling for Tayshia. And I think they're both going to be surprised that they are hitting it off so well. And it's going to be interesting to see that unfold. I also think Chasen and Ed are going to be ending up going home. So I don't know if that's next week or in the weeks coming, but I just don't think they're the perfect match for Tayshia. And things are just going to go down that are going to turn her off from pursuing relationships with them. But that's my hot take for the night.
Well, as always, I agree with everything you guys have said. I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. As I mentioned before, we want to know what you guys think. So hop in the comments and let us know. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss it next time we go live. And because we will be covering The Bachelorette here on Shared News all season long. So much great stuff, so make sure you subscribe. As always, I am your host, Fiona Zaring. You can follow me on socials at Fiona Zaring. And Gabby, where can they find you?
You can follow me at Gabby Gonta. Avery?
You can follow me at Avery Grooms.
Amazing. Thanks so much, you guys. And thank you for tuning in with us live. We will see you next time.